Hey guys, and thank you so much for joining us again this week. It is awesome to have you guys here week by week. And I mean, this is episode 10. This is absolutely flying, 10 weeks deep. I kind of never thought, or I was never really sure how much this would take off and where it would kind of get to. And so, I mean, 10 weeks deep, we've had over 5,000 plays, and that's all thanks to you guys. So thank you very much for tuning in week by week and for subscribing. It's super cool to have you guys on board with us. I do have a few requests from you guys. So because the podcast is still in its infancy, there is a few things that you can do. One of which is I want to hear your stories. So I would love to hear your bow hunting stories, and in particular, your first big kill. Okay, so for some people that might be a fox, for some people that might be a deer. But what I'd love to do is on your phone, on most phones, you've got a little recording option. And what I'd love to hear is your name, where you're from, and what your kill was, and how you went about that kill. Like, just give us a mini snippet of what your kill was, like a 2-minute snippet. And once you've got it, I just want you to send it to me, which is Matty at becomingabowhunter.com. If you send it to me there, I'll start to make a little compilement of these, and what we'll do is we'll put it in as maybe a snippet as to each podcast moving forward. So I don't know how this is going to go. I'd love to hear you guys. I'd really love to hear your stories and start to get you guys like drop your Instagram handle in there as well. I'd love to get you guys a little bit more extra, I guess, people following you as well. But yeah, keep it minimal, like 2-minute stories. If you can kind of do a quick little snippet, your name, your Instagram handle, where you live, what it was that you went hunting and how you went about it. That would be a super cool thing to hear. I think that'd be awesome, and I'm really excited to kind of chuck that little segment into the podcast. Secondly, if you guys enjoy the show, if you get any sort of benefit out of each show, please just refer a friend on. Like, if you got something out of it, someone else is definitely going to get something out of it. I know for me, I kind of started the podcast because I didn't know where to start, and so by having these interviews, it's allowed me to kind of gain access to people to kind of really further my knowledge, and that was the point of trying to share it as well as give it on to you guys. And so all I'd ask is that if you are gaining knowledge from the podcast, that you can please share it on with your friends, for anyone else in bow hunting that you think is going to benefit from it as well. This episode is brought to you again by Raw World Company. These guys have some incredible biltong, and they also do some delicious coffee. So if you guys are into either biltong, which is awesome when you're out in the field, as well as coffee, obviously, when we wake up on those early mornings, nothing quite solves that early wake up like a good old cup of cha. These guys provide some of the most delicious coffee I've actually had recently. So I would strongly recommend it. You can get a discount by using the code BABH, all in capitals, BABH, so becoming a bow hunter. Jump on that, guys. It is really cool. They support us, and I'd love if you can support them. They're a little family-run business out here in Brizzy, and they're doing incredibly well with just what they've got. So, I mean, their products are incredible. They're delicious, and I can't recommend them highly enough. Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bow Hunter. I'm your host, Matty, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands, searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting. Cool, here we are, guys. Another episode. We've got Mr. Craig Hales on from Hunting Camp Down Under. Craig, welcome, mate.
Thanks, buddy.
So, dude, super cool to get in touch with you. I mean, I've been following your podcast for a long time now. It was probably one of the first Oh, no, I didn't lie. There's a few overseas hunting podcasts I was listening to. But I was like, fuck, it's coming from the home ground. It sounds like it's kind of perfect for me in regards to getting into the sport and trying to learn, I guess, just from some of the Aussie regulars and some of the Aussie bow hunters. And to be honest, it was kind of a big influence as to why I started the podcast. So thanks firstly for joining me, but thanks for everything you do as well. It's cool to kind of have someone that's leading the way out in Australia.
No, cheers, mate. I mean, it's I was probably a little bit the same, you know. I've big into the American podcasts and become friends with a few guys over there, and I could probably see a little bit of a spot that we could fill back here, and something that we could touch on the subjects that we we deal with day in, day out as far as Australian hunting goes. And there was just simply a lot of stories to be shared, from fellow hunters back here. And I think that was sort of where I kind of had the main sort of drive for it, because I know a lot of the old school guys, and I know how much I've learned off them, and I kind of wanted to share a lot of that story.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, for me, it kind of comes from another perspective again of someone getting into it brand new. And I mean, like, I think we're a pretty similar age. I'm just about to turn 30 this year, and it's kind of like coming in at an older age. It's interesting to kind of, I guess, reflect and really take note of what you're doing and how you're doing and where your fuck ups are, and I guess if I can help to influence anyone else, but along the way, learning, like, just these podcasts are so good just for personally me actually getting to learn, which is selfish. But I'm happy to share it with everyone else as well.
Well, I think you got to get something out. We're only just saying this before you press record, but we're only just saying this. There's a lot involved in putting a podcast out. So I think if you're not getting something out yourself, it's hard to keep going with it, because it is quite time consuming. So and yourself, just find the content. If you can mix it up, but someone's learning something on every episode, it makes it pretty easy to do.
Yeah, it definitely does, man. So for you, what is your background like? How did you come into hunting?
Mate, I'm very, very lucky. My dad has been hunting since pretty much he was a kid as well. So I'm one of the lucky ones that I was born into it. So I was born into hunting and fishing. So, I think my first bow I got, and once again, I was straight into quality, but I think at the age of 12, I think Dad bought me my first bow. It was a Martin Jaguar. And, obviously for those days it was quality. And I think I shot 3D AAA when it very first started. So I think my number's like 258 or something. So I've been around it for a very long time. I think I've just notched over 20 years with the bow. So just very, very lucky to, have a dad that sort of, obviously was very passionate in it, and I was lucky that I enjoyed it as well. So
from your
quite
dad's
easy for me to do.
From your dad's side, did he ever push it on you, or was it more like you saw Dad doing it, you were like, that's cool, I want to do it too?
Well, I think because you're a mad fisherman, so Dad and I fish sort of 2 to 3 nights a week, and it was probably pushed on me a little bit, because it was like, if you want to get out and do something, this is what I'm going to do. So where my brother, unfortunately, he did it for a little while, and then went off his own way and did his own thing, and probably lost a little bit of connection with Dad because of that. Where myself, like, obviously I was into it, but I probably shot pretty well 3D AAA till I was about 16, and then did the whole, playing footy and partying and all that kind of stuff, and as we all do around that age. But so it was. I learned the basics quite early. I had the right gear early, and so my learning curve was pretty quick. I was fortunate that way.
And so for your 3D stuff, were you doing that all through like a local club, or were you having to travel quite a way to do that?
Yeah, so we've got a local club here. So I'm on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, just out of Taree, which is about an hour south of Port Macquarie. Yeah. And we've got a club here. It was quite a strong club back in the day. Still is relatively now. And it was just lucky that the guy that was president at the time had a fair bit of handle on the 3D AAA, getting that up and going. So we became a 3D AAA club more or less probably 6 months after I started. So I was 12 back then. And so we had 3D to shoot, every fortnight, I think it was on. So it was pretty good. And I grew up on a farm as well. So, we had 100 acres, so we had 3D targets and that to shoot at home. So we shot more or less every day.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. For me right now, like I said, an older person coming into it, and time is a limiting factor. Like I've got a family, I've got a job, I've got a business. Like running these different things and trying to figure out where to put your time. And something I've really wanted to do is get to a club. Something I haven't done is get to a club yet, because it's just focusing on those other things. And realistically, any time I've got free, I'm trying to get out and go hunting instead. For me, I'm quite lucky that in my yard I can shoot. I've got shots from like 30 or all the way up to 40 meters, which is good. And I guess really you don't want to be taking shots probably over 20 meters really when you're starting. Like you want to be as ethical as possible. But for you coming into it and getting that, I guess the 3D, the shots and stuff happening straight away, do you think that was like a bit of a confidence builder, actually having like those 3D animals compared to getting out and seeing real animals?
Almost definitely. I mean, it's a hard thing to. I'm very competitive as well. I've got a silent competitive nature, so I've got a drive in me as well to kind of be as good as I can be. It's kind of a self drive. Yeah. I don't sort of compare it to other people, but I was always very sporty. With football and cricket and all those kind of things. So having something else that I was obviously lucky enough to become quite good at and quite proficient at an early age. I was lucky we had the targets. We had 100 acres. We had rabbits down the back paddock and those kind of things. And then obviously once it came into the 3D, I was able to hunt quite early as well. So I think I was on my first bow hunt when I was 13. So it kind of, I don't want to sound, as blasé with it, but it kind of come a little bit natural, which I was very fortunate for. And I'll look back now and think, geez, I was very, very lucky because, there's a lot of us that doesn't have that you got to really work hard to get to a proficient sort of level. So it sort of flowed in a little bit, but definitely the 3D, if I could pick any kind of target practice, 3D has got it covered well and truly.
Yeah, definitely. I guess like the best thing is you're kind of learning the anatomy and the best shot placement as well to some extent on an animal when it's standing completely still for you. So it kind of seems like it's the best practice point.
Most definitely. I mean, look, I'll tell you right now, like the 18-1 targets, I still can't shoot one. If you ask me to put it in the middle at 30 yards, I probably still can't do it.
Yeah.
Put a 20-cent piece on a 3D target and I'll, 9 times out of 10 probably hit it. So it just, it is, I feel a lot more natural on that lifelike, sort of shape rather than trying to suit circles.
Yeah.
But it's probably something that I've just been used to as well. It doesn't, someone that shoots, the round target, so to speak, all the time, and then you throw a 3D target out there, a lot of the time with no backdrop really puts people off, especially competitive shooters. Having no sort of backdrop, it's funny that they sort of worry about an arrow or something like that, but it can throw, a lot of the best shooters out the window because it's just a chain of scenery through the peep sight or whatever way they're shooting.
Yeah, definitely, dude. And with that, like, did you have someone kind of tuning your bow for you, or is it something you've learnt yourself?
Yeah, it's probably been a progression of both. So early days, yes, I certainly had someone, shooting. I shot bare bow. I didn't have sights or anything for the first sort of few years. So I was very fortunate. I shot at a national level bare bow as a junior. The competition wasn't huge because I was lucky that I was, I was a lot bigger than the other kids in that. I never grew since I was about 14, so I'm still the same as I was now.
Man, by the sound of your voice, I thought you were like 7 foot.
Not at all. I'm a short ass, but no, it's so I was lucky that I probably shot like I was shooting like 40 pound at 13 years age. So, obviously shooting close targets and that I was pretty confident up to 30 yards, and then obviously as things happen, you start shooting dad's bow with the sights or mum's bow with the sights or something like that. And, it wasn't too long. And then I think, by the time I was 14, 15, I was probably shooting all the sights and things and, probably got a little bit too technical and I kind of put it in the corner for a few years. So, it was a progression. So the technical side of things, I probably haven't picked that up until, probably when I really got back into it sort of 10 years ago, so to speak.
Yeah, okay. And then for you, like, was rabbits the first animal that you culled with the bow?
It was a goat, actually. It was the first animal I shot. So,
okay.
Yeah, shot a goat for the first time, took the leg off it, and that was what I carried back because I didn't have a photo of the goat. I had a photo of the leg, so I still got it to the day. But, once again, I chased rabbits round and round and round, like all the time. I don't even know whether I shot one back home, but I'll probably end up doing that. But kind of went straight into the big stuff. But it was just a learning curve that I think I didn't. As much as I was competitive, I didn't know really what success was back then. Like obviously, I wanted to shoot a rabbit or something, but I didn't really care whether I shot it or not. Like it was just that I was out there flinging arrows around. So that was the enjoyment that I had.
Yeah, definitely. And now that you've got like a bit more of a direction, a bit more of a goal, do those basics go away from you? Do you ever see a rabbit and be like, I'll just go for it anyway? Or is it like, nah, I'm not, that's not what I'm here for?
Not much stays alive around me, mate. I've got to be honest. If it hops, it's getting snotted. But no, it never leaves you. I mean, a lot of the basics as far as the stalking and all those kind of things, they're still very much with me right now. I think that's why when kids start early with their dads and things like that, I think that's when they get to their early to late teens. They seem like they've been doing it and been the master of it for years because they don't know any different. They don't really know what failure is. They just see, they're kind of just used to success. They know how to get in close to the animal, or they know how to read the animal because they don't really know any different to that.
Yeah, definitely. I went out with James Doomstis a few weeks ago, and it was pretty interesting because he's similar. Like, he's been growing up on it since he was about 12 years old. He had his first bow and out hunting, and just the tips he was able to give me around the actual animals and things to look out for. And it's stuff like, I love animals and I've always taken big note of them, but it's still things that you never pay attention to if you've never seen them up that close before.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the bit you'll see a lot of guys that are really good photographers. You'll see these photos and people say, oh, it's just the lens. But, from some of these guys that get in so close to get some of those shots they get, they've got to be good on another level. And I think because you've taken the pressure off as everything trying to harvest the animal, you just really, if you go in and get a photo, that's all well and good. If you don't, it doesn't matter. It's amazing how much skill those guys have got, and they probably go a little bit unnoticed.
Definitely, man. The amount of time that they're putting in, like, if you can think about, for me in particular, like, I wouldn't go out into the bush just to take photos right now, because every time I go out, I'm trying to go hunting. And it's like to put the bow down and actually go out and go take photos one day. Like, they're putting a lot of time in the bush to be able to do that stuff.
Most definitely. You'll find a lot of the guys being quite successful on the hunting side of things. Name drop here, but, you look at the guys like Brad Smith and that have been pretty much carrying a camera around for the last 10 years exclusively in some ways. They've done so much with the bow. They're looking for the next thing, but they're still that interested in being out in the bush and pursuing an animal. But they're really happy for somebody else to probably have the bow in front of the camera, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely, man. Makes a lot of sense. And so for you, where do you kind of mainly hunt, and what are you mainly hunting?
So at the moment, obviously, I don't do quite nearly as much as probably what I did before kids. But my background is chasing the boars around the hills, the pigs. That's still my favourite thing to do, as much as everyone thinks I'm crazy, because if I see a big boar and there's a fallow grunting, I'm going to go for the big boar. So people shake their head, but that's just me. So that my background is on a family side of thing. We actually grew up on a piggery, so we had about 1,200 head. So it was quite a big commercial sort of enterprise, and so I've got a love-hate relationship with them. So, and I was fortunate enough that Dad had properties in that. He was originally a Sydney guy, and we got relations out west and that kind of stuff. So, I've been out spotlighting out in Nyngan and those kind of areas since I was about 5 and 6 years old. So, so we used to chase pigs and that out there in the truck and all those kind of things. So that's been my passion. And then I probably got into the deer hunting. That was probably just fortunate to meet some, very close friends of mine now. I was sort of introduced to the deer hunting and things sort of went from there. And that was sort of, you're going back sort of 10 years ago now.
Yeah, okay.
But, and then obviously of late, things have exploded, but we'll get to that bit.
Overseas stuff, yeah, definitely. And so, I don't know if you know, but the different pig species in Australia, is there one or two here?
There's probably several, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But most of the ones that we see in the wild, well, it really depends on what area you're in. So the Cape York stuff are generally sort of one or two species, and then a lot of the Western country, so Western New South Wales, Western Queensland. Western Queensland gets a little bit more of a drip, with the floods. A lot of those pigs come down through the water. But a lot of the Western country, you'll see a lot of these big-bodied spotted things and white and all that. They're all domestic. Or domestic crossbreeds, and then obviously, they've bred over the years, and that's where that's come from. So they're actually, a lot of them are piggeries that have either had a few in the pen and just got out, or whatever it is. So there's actually a lot of breeds. So
Okay. And so when you're looking for a mountain boar, for instance, what are you chasing?
Something that looks big and mean on the other side of the hill. But
So you're purely
no,
basing on glassing, or are you going for?
we're a bit of everything, so it probably depends on. And it's funny. It's a good question actually, because it will depend on probably who you talk to. A few of us that there's miles of us that hunt the mountains for the pigs, obviously, but it will depend on a little bit of what your country, how it lays, and some of the bigger country can kill you if you're going to try and sort of walk it all. You can go, you go nowhere quickly, if that makes sense. The glass is obviously always pretty powerful. But a big thing with boars too is a lot of the time they don't feed in the same spot for a long time. So you've got that catch-22 where you may glass something out on first light, but you've got limited time to get to him. So you've sort of got to try and find your spots that you know well, especially if you know your property. It's a bit hard when you've just started on there, but if you know a property that you generally got a pretty good area where they're going to be, that could water protection, those kind of things, bush lines, scrub lines. And to me, that's where you're probably going to get a little bit closer. You're still going to use your glass, but you're going to be within striking distance. And then a lot of the times we might sit on an opposite side ridge. We might glass this afternoon and find a big boar in a mob or something like that. There's a pretty good chance that mob's going to be there if they're not bumped. That mob's going to be there in the morning. So we'll generally pull a plan together to be up there at first light the next morning.
Yeah, okay.
So it's a mixture of both.
It is pretty interesting, like just trying to figure out what their movement patterns are going to be. And it's funny talking to so many different hunters now, just figuring, like, each person's got their own different opinion, which is completely fine, but it's based on their own experiences of what they've seen. And sometimes I've seen pigs trot, like they'll come into a property and then they'll leave and you don't see them for like a good 2-3 days, and then all of a sudden they're back. And they've obviously got their own little routine that they're following and going around and doing their little feedlots or doing whatever they do as they go. So it's just figuring out what they're actually doing.
They're a little bit like, I won't say they're deer, but in ways they're probably deer outside the rut. So they've got to, they've got to have something there to hold them there. So, once again, it still comes back to the feed and the water and things like that. Areas that I've hunted, I think I've said this in a couple of my podcasts, where they actually chase a lot of their feed is to do with sort of a certain grub and a certain feed type that they will, the larvae will come under the grass at certain times of the year and those kind of things.
Yeah, okay.
In the hills, they love thistles. They love the thistle root, stinger nettle root, all that kind of stuff. So, generally if you can find a patch of them or, certain times of the year, the thistles are stronger than the others. That's all going to depend on where you're at. The biggest thing is, to me, is the time of the year. It's cold. It's freezing cold. It's the middle of winter. I don't care how big the boar is. He's going to want some kind of sun at some kind of one part of the day.
Yeah.
So you get the sunny side of the hill. That's generally where the sows and all those kind of things will be. Potentially they're coming into season, and you're starting to put the pieces together. When it's hot, it's the middle of summer. It's stinking hot. Those pigs will not be in the sun. They will almost fully turn nocturnal.
Yeah.
I don't even hunt them through the summer, because unless you've got good, water sources that are, you have 2 or 3 water sources on the property and that's it, you're going to be doing well to find them. You can still hunt them. There's no problem there. But you're just going to put in a lot more harder yards.
Yeah, definitely. And how hard is it to scare pigs away from their set routine, for instance? So say, for instance, you find them on your property and maybe you trap some of the pigs. How likely is it that the rest of the bunch is going to stick around?
I think if you're trapping them, it'd probably come back to scent. It's probably a lot to do. But if a big boar wins you, the younger stuff you'll get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
I think if a big boar wins you, you're not going to see him probably for a long time. If they see you, that can be a little bit of a different story, as long as they don't smell you.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting. They're so smart with their noses, right? Like, it's bizarre.
Most definitely. I mean, you hear the stories of the pigs. They use them trying to find those truffles and those kind of stuff. The power of their nose is, you'll never beat it. Put it that way. That's the best. The best number one rule is well, to me, with most animals, is you're never going to beat their nose. It's one of their most powerful things. So keep that wind in your face, and especially if you're walking, if you're hiking, having one way in and one way out can be quite important as well, rather than sort of trudging all over the place or using if you're walking on the major game pad that potentially that mob of deer or pigs or whatever's going to come out on, you might want to think about walking on that every day.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when people say, like, you don't want to walk your scent through a place. And is there a theory as to how long your scent can stick around?
I think Mr. Kev Schulf said something about this there the other week in camp, but I think it's something along 6 hours in the sun.
Okay.
But it's sort of probably would depend on what time of day. I've had stuff where we've walked, down a gully and across a pad there, this afternoon, and I've had pigs or deer as well. Actually, I've had them pull up at that track the following morning, and turn around and go back in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, far out. So I wanted to dive into. I've had a few. Like, I get a lot of people reach out to me, which is awesome. I really love I think how accepting the bow hunting community is, but also how hungry the bow hunting community is for finding out new information, and I guess just asking for help, which is really cool as well. One question I've had come up quite a lot is, like, if I don't have access, I'm working on access right now, but I still want to practice and get ready for when I do get access. Like, what things should I be doing? I mean, the typical things I'm telling them is, hey, still try get out in the bush and still try to stalk up on animals if you can. Like, stalk up on your pets if you can. Stalk up on cows out in the paddock. Like, do what you can to try learn to stalk without an animal even looking your direction, because I think that's probably the hardest thing. Like, it's all well and good to shoot your bow, but it's a different game as soon as you're in front of animals. The other thing is maybe looking into the animals, and I mean, something you were talking about before with the 3D shooting is actually just learning, like, the anatomy of the animal. What other things, I guess, could you build on that if people don't have access yet, but they're trying to get it, and they really want to kind of up their game?
I guess bow hunting has been one of those things. I think it's probably why we see a lot of people come and go with the sport, is because you've probably just touched on a couple of the hardest things involved with it. Access is everything. I'll first put my hand up where I've had some of the best access that, New South Wales has had to offer, and to the point now where I'm very, very limited in access, and you kind of take the times when they're good and you work hard when they're not. But I think the biggest thing is, you mentioned it there, is trying to stay keen with the bow. Whether it's shooting targets or, if you shoot in the backyard or got a friend with a block that you can put a target out. Staying entertained with the sport's probably the number one factor. Yeah. Things do come into, they come around in circles, I think. So, access is not far away if you're committed to finding it, and it may only start with a block which I think is where a fair bit of the problem comes from now with people getting frustrated, is, you're not going to probably walk into a block with the biggest red deer in Australia. Some people are lucky enough that happens, but, it's not going to take, it's not going to be the first 12 months that potentially that's not going to happen. So, finding a block that maybe just have a few rabbits on it, and a fox, and then just sort of working your way from there. And it might only be a 20-acre hobby farm, with a couple of, pushed up log piles or something. It's something just to get you keen to pop out and have a look. Obviously, you guys in Queensland are a little bit sort of doing a little bit tougher than what we have down here. And then Victoria is a whole nother leap again. But you can use that to your advantage as well. If you, rather than trying to get out every weekend, if you've got the ability to maybe, organise a weekend once a month or every second month, pick a state forest on a map and throw a couple of boys in the car and book yourselves in and get down and have a walk around the scrub.
Yeah, exactly.
You might get down there and may not see an animal, like you may not see a sign of anything, but at the end of the day, I think you sort of got to, work out where you're going. Am I just trying to get out with the boys and get in the bush, and then, what comes from there, and then grow on that. And as you're doing that, you're going to continue to work on certain access, for property owners, or, talking to friends or family, or, using your work friends and those kind of things. Everybody's got a contact somewhere, and it's just been a matter of the right place at the right time, half of it.
Yeah, it definitely is, man.
And I think it just comes back to a lot of planning. I find a lot more enjoyable with the hunts I go on now, probably more so than what I did, when I was doing them every sort of couple of weeks, because now they mean a lot more. When I got the time, I've organised the time to meet the boys and those kind of things. And, I might go down to Victoria and catch up with guys down there or whatever it may be. It's a little bit more planned, so I don't take it for as granted as much. But there's another one too, maybe twice a year, May and then October. So it's planning out your calendar, and it's like, right, I can get 6 hunts in for this year and then concentrate on them 6 hunts.
Yeah.
I'll go down to Victoria for a long weekend or 5 days or something like that, grab a mate and throw a heap of cash up on the dash and say, right, we're going for 5 days. We're going to find this spot in the Alpine National Park and, go for it. You know what I mean? That's, bow hunting's allowed up there for most parts of the seasons, and I won't quote rules and that because I don't know them well enough, but, you can get up there, and Victoria is just a fantastic state to create those opportunities. And then obviously New South Wales has got plenty of state forests that are opened up to hunting. And, they're great places to start. And if you probably aren't that far across the Queensland border, they're ones just to suss out. And if it's no good this one, pick another one next time.
Yeah, I'm quite fortunate where I am in Brisbane. Like it's literally a few hours to the closest national park, state forest. I'm not sure what's actually counted as in New South Wales.
State forest, yeah. The ones we can hunt are state forest, yeah.
So I mean, like really, if you're in Brisbane, you just need to get your license for New South Wales, and then that's a good starting point. Like it's never going to be a chance where you don't have to drive. Like you're never going to get something a minute from home unless you live on a farm yourself. And I think something I talked about a lot in my first episodes, and I bulk prepped a lot of episodes, and then I've just kind of come around to my second lot of bulk editing and bulk recording. But the first one I was talking a lot about the petition that was going around for Queensland. I don't know if you don't know about it, but the petition was to try get us into state forest and bits and pieces here in Queensland, and it got shut down straight away by the government. They saw it, took a look at it, sent an email back like, hey, sorry, this is not going to happen, thanks. And that was it. It was like no talk for further, like nothing extra. It's just, we're done with that, sorry. It's not allowed within Queensland. So we're not anytime soon going to get access to public land. So we have to work on either getting our own access to private land or building into something like using guides or finding something that works for you. Something here in the Brisbane Valley is they've got the Ridge Group. It's R.I.D.G.E. And with that Ridge Group, what they do is they pay the farmers. So you pay them, they pay the farmers, and then you also pay for each cull that you take, for instance. So you'd pay a yearly subscription of, say, $600 a year, and then they start to pay the farmers to be able to harvest and not harvest, but be able to manage the herds a little bit better. And then from there, you pay for every cull that you get off of that. There's also different hunting properties around the place that have come about just from doing different searches here in Queensland. So there's definitely options out there for us, but you just have to be a bit more willing to kind of go searching for it. And really, I guess for us, bow hunting is not a cheap sport. Getting into it's not cheap. So you're already here. You may as well put in the extra bit of cash to get a hunt out as well.
Well, I think it probably comes back to that same question, and you kind of nearly said it then. It's what you're trying to get out of it. How quickly you want to find success, and at what level you're satisfied, I suppose. When someone like myself, like I don't really do anything else. I work. I have a farm here as well. I'm fortunate there, and so I work my day job. I do a little bit on the farm, family time, and then the rest of it is spent something to do with hunting. Really, at the end of the day. So, yeah, sure, it's probably a little bit more involved for me, and I sort of go that little bit further than most, but. I think, as I said, probably come back to that planning. If you can't afford to do a paid hunt, every 3 months, pick one. Cape York's a perfect example. You got Matty Moore and, Koyuga Adventures up there. I mean, that's just one to choose from. There's not really any better kind of trips away, whether it's you with the boys or you and your partner or the family or whatever it may be. Like Cape York is just the home. You know, it's a bow hunter's paradise up there. You've got fishing and everything else going, and you know you might only do that once a year if you're lucky, every few years, but it's certainly something to work towards. And as you said, just that little bit extra investment to something, you know, like an arrangement that you just mentioned. You know, that's a perfect opportunity to get into some fantastic country. And, you know, you could probably say, look, I mightn't get out every third weekend, but geez, if I can go and hunt a property like that every 2 months, it's well worth my time. And look, let's be honest, when we're busy with, you know, family and work and all those kind of things, it's hard to get away any more than that anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to convince the other half is a big part, right? Like, I think everyone who's in bow hunting is probably already incredibly lucky for the fact that their partners are willing to let them do that, because you see some partners that wouldn't let anyone like kind of have that weekend away. It makes you think about that relationship maybe, but I mean, I think we're all quite fortunate that we've got understanding partners.
Very, very good negotiators is what I say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's never just a weekend away, is it?
No, never. It's just a constant battle here at my house. So, but I think that's the biggest thing is just it is a family involvement. Whether it's just yourself that's hunting, you gotta look outside that, and you're involving everybody in your passion. So it's a matter of balancing that time and you know, finding what works for your family, so to speak, and making the most of that time.
Yeah, definitely. And for you, like you said to me before we started recording that you have done a fair few different guided hunts. Where did you kind of start with that? Like, was it Australia based to start with, and then you progressed from there?
Yeah, sure was. So my first one was back in 2007, I think it was. I went to Cape York for the first time. You know, I was just busting to go, and so Dad and I went up there, and we had a fantastic trip up there. And you know, this is kind of before the days of, I don't want to go down that track, but it was before the days of social media when forums and that kind of stuff were pretty big, running pretty hard. And so yeah, I went up there on I think it was a 7-day hunt, and Dad and I had a fantastic time. And obviously I've done a fair bit of hunting down here, but I'd never had the opportunity to sort of hunt, I guess, the amount of game that's up there. And I'm not saying that Cape York's a walk in the park by any means. It's actually pretty tough hunting with the heat and, you know, the vastness of the country up there. But yeah, so I did a guided hunt up there. I managed to shoot a scrub bull on the same trip, and it kind of lit the fire to probably do the bigger hunts. So yeah, Dad and I had a fantastic trip. It was our first sort of big trip away. It was the first time I'd been on a plane with Dad.
Wow.
He was petrified. I'd been on plenty. But it was a great trip.
Do you know that, like with those hunts, for instance, do they only charge you when you get a cull, or is it like you pay a set amount and then you pay extra for each cull, or is it usually just like a set amount and that's it?
Mate, when it comes to the pigs, so obviously hunting pigs up there in the Cape York, it's just I think it was $3,000 for 7 days. That's all your meals, you know, all that kind of stuff. You're very, very well looked after. You picked up at the airport. If you wanted to drive, you could. And you know, you go your hardest. I think you bought your beer and that was it. But then when it comes to like scrub bulls and things like that, generally the property owner or station managers or whoever they are would have generally a set arrangement prior with the outfitter, and you know that might be $700 to $1,000 per bull or something like that. So that would be added cost. So if you don't want to shoot one, you don't have to pay any further money. Yeah, okay. And generally that's because obviously they could potentially catch them in a roundup sort of, you know, throughout the year.
Yeah, definitely sell it off for meat anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Then for you, were you taking, like, from that scrub bull that you got, did you take any meat from it?
No, they took a bit. They took a lot of it, I should say, back to the station, because where we were staying was as a sort of a stop on the way to Weeper as well. So they had truck guys in there, and they had different guests and that stayed in there, and the outfitter that we were with, they sort of managed and used the facilities there as well, and ran the hunt out of there. So it was a good setup actually. So we didn't need any of it. The food was endless. We didn't have to worry about sort of providing ourselves, but they were pretty keen to get their hands on it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess like there, you're actually providing for a whole other community, which is really cool.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's with the pigs, mate. It's pretty whack and stack. I've got to be honest. And I'll be honest. That's kind of how I've grown up as well. The whole meat thing and that kind of thing is really only come of light of the last couple of years. It's been a fantastic growth to see the sport because of that reason. Yep. There's a lot of the, it sort of crosses some wires there because there's a lot of the old school guys, they're hunting pigs because they hunted pigs. They're getting them off the properties, and they found a way to do it that stopped getting boring. Rather than just going out and shooting hundreds with a gun, they thought, oh, these bows are pretty fun. So, my dad's a little bit like that. He's a whack and stack man, and
yeah.
Shows full respect in that to all the game and those kind of things, but it's a bit of a numbers game when you're hunting with my man. So, but it's pretty fun at the same time. So the pigs are like that, and obviously with the value of the scrub bulls and those kind of things, not everyone's going to go and throw $1,000 to go and shoot one of them. So, but when they do, it's pretty good for the station. So $1,000 go in, they take the meat, and it's pretty happy days all the way around.
Yeah, that's unreal. And when it comes to something like a guided hunt, are they taking you to the animals? Like they're literally walking you through, saying, "Hey, these are the places they're going to be. We're going to go and we'll check out these few places with you. We'll stand back and you go and hunt the animal."
I think that's a good question, and this is probably only coming from experience, but it's the advice that I always give people is know these things before you go. So have a conversation with the outfitter, the guide, or whoever, whatever you want to call it. Know the expectation and know how they run things before you even get there, because sometimes the way they do things may not be at your level, or maybe below your level. Mm-hmm. So that sort of comes down to one, your expectations of what you want to get out of it. Are you pretty much going just purely for the access in a way of like a semi-guided sort of hunt or self-guided hunt? Or if you're someone that hasn't done a lot of hunting but wants to learn the ropes fast, go all in with a guide. Ask the question, say, look, I haven't shot much. I'm going to need... I want you to walk me in. I want you to hold my hand. There's nothing wrong with that. People got to, stop worrying about that. It's the best way to learn is from the guys that are doing it every day, all week, for months of the year. Your learning curve is very, very quick. And so, knowing those things. So ours was a little bit of a mixed match. So the first day or two was getting to know the country. My dad and I sort of hunted with the guide together. There was a couple other hunters in camp as well, so they were with the other guide. And then it was sort of a matter of, Craig, and we hunted sort of baits. They've got like maybe a scrub bull's been shot, or, they had a certain amount of brumbies and that they need to take off the property a year as well. So that was old hunts. Mm-hmm. They were done by the stationers or part of the outfitters agreement. So they would use them as a location for us to, the pigs will obviously come in. There's no food up there. So we'd use that to our advantage, and you'd be throwing a GPS, or, you said, look, you've been up there this morning, go up that track, turn right. Yep, I know where it is. So they drop you up, K down the road and keep going. And so I just walk up the track, and I shot quite a couple of boars doing that. Just walked in slowly and knew where I had to be. And and then other times, it was everybody together, and, there was one on the one side of the creek, and I'd be on the other side of the creek, and you just walk slowly together. And, going back up again. So I've done that a couple of times. Going up the second trip, we obviously got a little bit organised and had radios. So we'd have a little speaker in your ear, and a little microphone under your chin. And, walking those dry creeks is pretty handy to have someone on the other side of the creek with a mic, and, they just call across to the radio and say, hey, you've got a boar, 50 yards in front of you, up under a cut. That's a pretty good way to really pick apart your country, and because otherwise a lot of the time you blow them out because they hide so well in those dry creeks. They're spotting you and they're out of there before you even get eyes on them. So, it'll take you take you 5, 6 hours to walk just a couple of K creek. It's pretty slow on. So
yeah, it's pretty interesting watching just some of the YouTube videos, even on like that are getting about from some of the stuff up there, and you'll be watching the video and you know that they're onto something, but you got no idea where it is. You're like, where the fuck is it? Yep. And then all of a sudden they take their shot and you see the pig run off. You're like, oh, that's where it was. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. You've got Jerry and Brad just put out those the couple of new Bowhunt Down Under films up in the Coburg with they're chasing the bangtang up there. But a couple of those boars that Brad shoots, you can't see them. You can't even see them when they zoom in.
No.
Just goes to show you how well they blend in. And a few things. I did those first couple of Cape York trips. I've done a Chiddle trip, guided. That was the same outfitter that was running the Cape York ones.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to take a couple of Chiddle on that trip, and once again, for me to try and have Chiddle access, it probably wouldn't happen. I'm not in Queensland, and that maybe today might be a bit different with the contact base that we all have, but back in them, as I said, there was only the forums, and it probably wasn't the numbers around as much either. So there was lesser properties that had them. So
yeah, definitely. And so for you, when did it progress to wanting to go overseas?
So it was it kind of fell in my lap a little bit. I've always been very intrigued with the overseas stuff. I've always been reading the Cabela's magazines and wanting to buy everything under the sun because it looks so cheap in the but a good friend of mine. Yeah, definitely. A good friend of mine, Ben McCulloch, we met back at an expo actually, and started hunting together back in I think it was 2011 or something like that. And it was a friendship that obviously progressed very, very quickly. And he actually had an elk trip planned in September 2011, and himself and Robbie Austin went over and did that. And it was actually the same. He left the day after I hunted probably one of the best bucks I've ever hunted back here in New South Wales. So I'd actually dropped back into his house on the way back through, showed him some photos and things, and he was obviously going to the States the following day, so wished him luck. And I was sort of sitting there, and obviously by that time I started watching videos and YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. And he come back and shot a tank of a bull, an elk, and Robbie shot a good one as well. And it was sort of a little bit of a fire there, but I didn't really sort of know how much of a fire until January 2013. A bit of a personal thing. The wife and I were sort of trying to have children, and we'd been trying a few years. Nothing was happening, so we ended up turning around and Ben and Ange, Ben his wife, they were going on a 3-month sort of late honeymoon trip, and in the States in 2013. They said, look, we're going to finish up the trip by going back to Elkridge Outfitters. You guys should come. And we're like, you know what? Yep, let's do it. It's that time of our lives where we need to probably think of other things. And so anyway, right there and then, Ben made the call and booked in for September 2013. And unbeknownst to us, 6 weeks later, we found out we're pregnant. I'd paid all the money. And
wow.
But the hunt still happened, and got over there, and I'll be honest, mate, I was just blown away by the countryside. Those elk are something else, and I'd booked in for the following year before I'd left.
Yeah, that's cool.
And booked me spot, and it just lit a fire. Ben's passion for elk hunting, and that is something that rubs off pretty easily. And there's a lot of other guys out there who have done it as well and are still doing it, and you soon find out who those are, and they've all got the same love for it. It's hard to beat. It's hard to explain, to be honest with you, because we put ourselves through so much to get there. And so 2014 I returned and missed 2015, and then I've hunted it every year since, one way or the other. So
it's quite funny. Like, we definitely put a hierarchy on animals to some extent. You're like, oh, this is obviously the pinnacle of Australia, and then you see something like that, you're like, oh, well, maybe that is accessible. Like, maybe I should go over and do something like that. And for me, overseas hunting has not been a big thing on my radar at all until I heard a podcast when people were talking about wapiti over in New Zealand being just like the elk. And I was like, oh, well, maybe it should be something to think about. But I mean, realistically, you got got to build up your way here before you start heading overseas, I'm sure. But yeah, so how did you get into the stages of trying to help people out then?
Yeah, well, it was probably coming along the lines as the years progressed. 2014, I think, was the year that I started building points over there. Credit to Ben. Ben had been doing it a couple of years before then, and I honestly didn't really know much what I was doing. It was just that I was told that I should start building points over there if I want to keep doing this. Had no idea why I was doing it or what I was doing, but as I said, 15 I missed, and then 2016, April 2016, I took it a little bit more serious. I'd doing a little bit more homework. Ben and I sort of worked together on it and sort of finding out what opportunities, the states offered in as far as limited draw and over the counter, and starting to really nail out, what it all meant. And it was something I'm not good at a lot of things, but it sort of was one thing. I don't read and those, I don't watch the news or anything like that kind of stuff, but it's one thing that's been able to keep my concentration. I can't help but, just reading each state's, legislation and all those kind of things, draw rods and all that. It just fascinates me. I don't know why, because it's just not my nature. But So probably 2016, I drew an elk tag in New Mexico, and from there, the questions came from everybody that knew about it. How'd you go about doing that? And I think that's where I sort of was probably the first little thought sort of started coming from there. And Brad Smith was on that hunt with me, and he filmed that with Jerry. And from that, a lot of questions come back to say, hey, we want to shoot an elk. Like, what's the go with that? And it was probably a bit of a combination effort is why I sort of jumped across, and obviously late last year sort of eventually got to the point where I thought, maybe we can help guys on a business level and a more professional level. I initially started referring people to one of the American companies, and just noticed that there wasn't any really customer service there. It was more just another number.
Yeah.
And being over there and knowing how different we are, how we hunt, our knowledge of hunting compared to a lot of the guys over there, and no disrespect meant by that, but we have a lot more opportunity here. To have a bow in a hand or gun in a hand or whatever it may be. So it was only a matter of time where I thought, getting to the point that I don't want to see anybody lose or waste money when they go for a trip over there. And I hear these stories and it grits my teeth. So because I've been fortunate enough to do a few trips now and hear the bad stories, hear the good ones, and touch wood, been involved in a good one everywhere I've gone. I just want to make sure that when people finally make that trip over there, and potentially a trip of a lifetime, I just want it to be the best experience possible, and that's sort of where it started.
Yeah, I think that potentially some people look at it and just think it's unattainable because of maybe the cost of the downlay that you might have to put out. And that's based off of seeing some outfitters charging $10,000-$15,000 dollars to get over there. And do your trip, plus you got to obviously pay for your flights and stuff on top. Is that sort of like the only way to do it, or is this system that you're setting up essentially like a better way to go about it because it's kind of like a self-service instead?
Yeah, and look, and it probably comes back to the same thing. And I know I keep sort of saying expectation, but a lot of it is all involved in that. Some people just want to go and shoot the biggest and meanest thing that they possibly can in the shortest time. Or other guys are happy to slug it out and do the time, do the hard yards and come up with something. They're usually the ones that get something pretty special anyway. But what I've set up is every state in America is different. They all have their own rules and regulations, and they all process their hunts in a different manner. That's the confusing bit. They all have elk in them. They all have deer in them for the most part. And, when you first look at it, it's just like, what is all this? And that was the biggest part, was breaking it all down and trying to make it in a simplistic way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. So we're obviously, for the majority of the guys that have, that jumped on board with our tag, our consultancy service, is more along the lines of start now in 3 to 4 times when you go, the quality of your hunt potentially will be better.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I just ran some figures there before. So in Colorado, you'll hear a lot of the talk about over the counter, doing over the counter, do DIY over the counter. There was 55,000 elk tags over the counter, archery elk tags sold in 2017. That's just Colorado. All right. So you got 55,000 other hunters that you're
battling against,
slog around the bush with. To be honest with you, that's what you're competing against, and it's hard for us to imagine that there's that many. That's just bow hunters.
Yeah.
There was only 17% of that. I think it might have been 11%. I can't remember the figures now, but was successful. So, what my idea is that I don't want someone going over there hunting the hunter and potentially might hear an elk. That's pretty much what you're going in for if you're going into that with no expertise or no experience, I should say, rather than expertise. But so my idea was to get people started into points where we could obviously get you out of the crowds. You would go into what we call a draw unit or a limited entry unit. So there's a limited number of hunters, potentially get a tag in that unit, and therefore in the long run, hopefully you have a better quality experience because there's less competition of hunters and hopefully, more huntable games. So that's the very basic version of why we've started what we've have.
Yeah, that's unreal. So really it's just like a big lottery kind of system.
It's a huge lotto with a couple of twists and turns. So I don't want to confuse, it's very hard obviously to talk about how everything works, but the major players are, you'll see these massive big elk that people shoot. It's that deserty kind of country. Mm-hmm. So you got Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. Yeah. They're your big players as far as like where you see all these crazy, big elk shot, the 400-inch jobs. I'm not saying they're not shot in other states. They definitely are. But, that's generally where the big players are. They're also the 3 to 4 hardest states to ever even get a hunt in there. I would nearly call them once in a lifetime opportunity states. Yeah, so that's where you hear guys saying, I've waited 20 years for this tag. I've waited 25 years for this tag. That's those states there. New Mexico has a complete range. New Mexico is what you just said, is a complete lotto. You and I every year have the same chance of drawing a tag than the next year. You can't get an upper hand on the other person apart from depending on what unit you would try and draw for.
Yeah, okay.
So where I would suggest most people consider is along the lines of Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho and Oregon for the like. But, the reason that is because there's more tags to us as non-residents, and non-residents comes from either out of state or out of the country. There's just so many more options for us to get over there on an affordable manner.
Yeah, definitely. Something that you touched on before was obviously falling in love with their countryside. And like when you go traveling in general, like you will go and you'll see all the sights, and there's only so much you can do in each city or each town. But when you go out in the bush, like you can actually, like when you get exploring, you actually just take so much more in, I find. So it's almost like, hey, if you've paid, say, $5,000 to go over to Europe once before, why not put that towards going to something like the States and getting a lot more out of it potentially, because you're going out into the wild and you're actually enjoying nature.
Most definitely. I mean, I think a lot of the times where you talk to a hunter and they think of, that elk hunt that they go to bed dreaming about. I think that a lot of that comes into probably your Montana and your Wyoming country, the big mountains, maybe a few bit of snow on the peaks and those kind of things. Hence why probably New Zealand's a big pull for a lot of people. Yeah. And I think it's all about, it's that full experience. And if you're not going over there looking for that full experience, I've got to ask the question, why are you going? Mm-hmm. If you're going over there just to shoot something, it's probably a lot easier just to stay here and but it, and that crosses the path with the whole guided, do I go guided? Do I do it myself? All those kind of things. It's expectation. It's probably budget. And all those probably things cross over right there. So once again, it's a personal thing, and our consultation service is trying to, make that a very personalised thing. I'll ask you questions along the lines of, what's your expectation? What do you want to do? Oh, look, I'm only ever going to do it once in my life. Well, look, I'd probably save up for 3 years and just go on a guided hunt and get your elk that you've always wanted.
Yeah.
if it's someone maybe of our age or even younger that potentially has the means to be able to go over every few years, I'd probably be doing it DIY. Like I'd probably go over the first time with absolutely no expectation and then work on that from there. So look, righto, I've seen what it's all about. I've seen how big the country is. I've just seen how hard these things are to actually find. Next year, I'll do it different. And use your money in time. So go over 5 times rather than just going to pay one big hunt. And sometimes you would play up. You would say that if you drew a tag like I did in New Mexico, I drew obviously a tag down there that, you're not going to get every second year. It's, potentially I won't draw it again. For something like that, look, I paid an outfitter. I'd never stepped foot in New Mexico.
Yeah.
I've been there now. I would have no need to use an outfitter now because I've seen what the country's like down in New Mexico. Give or take, they're all a little bit different. But I've got the confidence that I could go down there with time up my sleeve to do what I need to do.
How about taking gear with you? Like, obviously, you're going to take your bow and your setup, but when it comes to doing like a DIY setup where you're out camping for maybe like a few weeks on end, or at least like a good week on end, like, Are you buying all the gear over there, or are you taking it over with you? Because obviously you've got your baggage limits and things like that with flights.
Best way to look at it is if you can't take it on the plane, you're taking too much gear.
Okay.
So you pretty much, the way we do it, like if it's purely a backpacking trip, a bit different if you've got a camera crew and that with you, that throws this theory out the window. But, for instance, if you're going on a backpacking trip, your DIY, you're doing it all yourself. Pretty much what you've got in your backpack, what you're going to carry up the mountain is really all you need, apart from your bow case and, obviously your bow and your arrows and all that kind of stuff in there, which you would leave in your truck. So the idea is that, most international flights would offer, I think it's 23 kilo per bag and you get 2 bags.
Yeah.
So you got your bow case in one, you jam all your clothes and everything in that. You have a suitcase, put your backpack at the bottom of that and put everything else over the top. So your tent and all those kind of things over the top of that. And then pretty much you just have a couple of pairs of change of clothes and you're good to roll.
Yeah, that's unreal. So, we're coming close on the hour here, so we might start to wrap things up. I've got a few more questions I wanted to ask, but first of all, how can people get in touch in regards to like the consulting side of things?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously social media is fine on Instagram. So Hunter Camp Down Under it. That's probably the easiest way to find me. I do get back to you. Bear with me. Email is huntingcampdownunder@gmail.com. Those two are right there, and I've also got a web page as well. So Hunting Camp Down Under. You can jump on there. It's got all my contact details as well. So it starts. Obviously it's a little bit. We're moving into the end of tag season, so to speak, if you want to call it in the States. There's still a couple of states open that we can grab some points in.
Yeah.
So Wyoming and Montana, they open their points only section up in July. So there's still a good time. It's never too late. I always say, even if you're not planning to go over for a few years, now is the time to start grabbing a few points. I'll explain why it's important to do it. Pretty much every state over there is probably going to be dropping over-the-counter tags very, very soon. So getting points now, unless you want to go and pay a bucket load of money, it's so important.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. It's good to know, obviously, because you don't want to get 3 years down track where you've saved up all this money and then you're going straight over for an over-the-counter tag and you can't do it anymore.
Definitely. And I think, look, as far as stepping up, you made an interesting comment there before. It's like, I haven't sort of looked outside, Australia, I'm not confident enough to do it. It really does when you book something in. I must admit, and it's great for me on a fitness and health level. So I've drawn the Ibex tag that I did there last year. I've drawn that again for October. Mm-hmm. I should go and buy a lotto ticket because it's about about the same odds.
Yeah.
It's rated one of the hardest hunts in North America. So I've started training for that now.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I finished my Alaskan goat hunt last year. I didn't really have any I wasn't working towards anything and kind of the fitness level sort of plateaued a bit.
Yeah.
But I've got a whole new thing. So if you're looking for that thing to train for or, get ready to shoot for, booking a trip whether it's a Cape York trip, whether it's a tar hunt or something in New Zealand, which I think personally everybody should be hunting New Zealand once a year. If you ask me, it's across the ditch. It's so easy, so accessible, so affordable. It's a really good way to build up just your bush skills and your hunting skills so fast. There's some really cool dudes out there. Tom Jones is one of them that can help you out with information. They're the guys to be talking to and can really leapfrog, a lot of the tough times that we all go through on the learning curve.
That's unreal, man. So with the ibex hunt, are you going to hit it this time?
I freaking hope so.
Oh, dude.
I'll be a little bit better prepared. I know what I'm expecting this time. It's going to be hot, so I'm not in the middle of winter this time, which is going to be a bit different. And I've got to deal with rattlesnakes, which I'm not a massive snake fan, I've got to be honest. But no, I've got a good crew over there that's going to help me out. I've got my Matt Ellis from Borderland. He's my outfitter again. He's a good buddy of mine, so I'll be catching up with him. I'll be doing some kind of elk thing with him beforehand, whether I'm hunting or whether I'm guiding. I'll do one or the other. But, then he'll help me out with camp and spend a few days. He's a busy man, but I've got a few other guys that I met on the mountain last year that are going to come down and give me a hand already. They've put their hand up. So it's what it's all about. Some of the people I've met, some of the best people I've met ever sort of thing. And, you talk to them once every blue moon, but they're really good dudes, and you met on the mountain hunting the same animal, so it's pretty cool that way.
Yeah, definitely, man. That's one thing I really thank the community for, is just how genuine everyone has really been. It's really cool to see.
Well, I think it sort of shows what people are in it for as well. Mm-hmm. I don't mind people sort of being tight-lipped in a way, because that's probably how they've probably done it tough. And I think that people need to respect that as well. They might have been burnt. They've probably given information and then someone's done the wrong thing by them. And, to be honest, they're not going to help anyone again. And I think that's what's really important, is just to understand each other's, the way that we've got to where we are now, and, help where we can. And I think the community, whether it's bow hunting, I like to call it in an umbrella as hunting in general, because I think we need each other.
Yeah.
It's only going to go the right way if we stick together.
Yeah, definitely right. So wrapping up, 2 questions, I guess. One question is, what would be one of the biggest takeaways you got from your dad in regards to hunting?
One of the biggest takeaways I got from Dad, I'd probably say persistence. He's mate, he can hunt the same block that not a seen animal for 3 days straight, and he'll come back with the boar that no one ever knew that was there on the 4th day. I don't know how he does it, but I've probably given up too many times too quickly and gone home or thrown in the towel. I'm getting better at it, to be honest with you, now that killing's probably not as important to me. I know that sounds funny, but that's what it comes down to. But I think persistence and probably enjoying it. I've never seen grins. He enjoys every camp we're in. It doesn't matter whether fishing, hunting, it doesn't matter. I had a good reminder of that actually when I was in deer camp there a couple of weeks ago with Jake's old man Les. He reminded me a lot of my old man, and I've never laughed so much in a couple of days, and it just reminded me what it's all about. So I think camp atmosphere and persistence when in the field is probably the biggest one.
I actually know Jake's cousin from school days. And the Gasparovskis, man, just them in general are funny people.
I'll just smile and I'll just giggle as I say that. So it's good people, very good people.
Yeah, definitely. And then last one is, and really we've just done a whole podcast full of it, but tips for newbies. If there's something you could kind of pass on to a new bow hunter or someone that's getting into hunting, really it's just a tip for a hunter in general.
Stick with it.
Yeah.
I think that's the most simple one. I'm a gear nut, so probably don't take my advice, but, do what you can. Slow improvements every day is probably the one. So stick with it, find an improvement, find a positive out of everything you're doing, and talk to the right people. There's some really cool people out there that are willing to help. Just know where they are and just thank them for it. When you get that one little piece of advice, just thank them for it.
Yeah,
there's about, but anyway. I can't count. So.
No, that's perfect, man. That's awesome. Well, dude, thanks so much for your time, man. And for everyone listening, like, I think this is very insightful, this episode. So definitely, guys, if you enjoyed it, please pass it on to a mate, like a fellow hunter who could get something out of it. But jump across, if you're not already listening to Hunting Camp Down Under, jump across and give them a subscribe, give them a listen. I really enjoy the podcast. You're doing a great job there, Craig, so keep that up as well. But otherwise, follow Craig on Facebook and Instagram. Sorry, did you say Facebook or just Instagram?
No, mate, just Instagram. So I've got a personal handle is at Craig Hales, but I don't do much with it now. It's more just a family one. So stick to the Hunting Camp Down Under one, and you'll see all the updates there. So I appreciate you reaching out too, mate. It was great to come on, get to know you, and you're doing a wonderful thing. And I've heard all good things, with the guys that have been on and have been guests, and they're giving kind words to yourself, mate. So well done.
Oh, that's good. Thanks heaps, man. Appreciate it.
No worries, mate. And if anyone's got any questions, bear with me. I will get back to you, but it's coming. But I know we briefed over that tag thing a little bit, but it is quite a complex thing. But the biggest thing is I just want you putting your money in the right places and not wasting anything. So that's what it's all about.
It's funny, you often say like, oh, guys, I know I talk about this a lot on the podcast, but I'm like, I don't really understand it yet, mate. So you need to talk about it more.
I know. It's just, I think a lot of the terminology, I just confuse people if I go into it too much. But, maybe one day I'll get better at trying to explain it, and might make it a little bit easier.
Just draw a big mud map or something up.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe do a YouTube link.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Thanks heaps, mate. Appreciate it.
Got it, man. Thanks heaps.
That's it. That's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you have not already, please do hit subscribe. If you want to leave us a great little review, that would also be highly appreciated. However, follow along with our journey at becomingabowhunter.podcast on Instagram and Facebook. You can also check out our website, which is www.becomingabowhunter.com. And if you want to email me of any guests or any questions that you would like answered on the podcast, then you can get in touch with me via email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Make sure you join us next week. Big love from us at Becoming a Bowhunter.